All right, hey everyone, how's everybody doing? I hope that went over a little. That went over seamlessly. I'm hoping so. I'm new at this, the making the video for this and getting it up and putting myself up immediately afterwards. I don't know if any of that made sense. Maybe I'm not prepared for this whole evening, man. Everyone should just go home, right? Everyone should just go home. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. We've got it here with me. We got Thrash Pondo Pons, and we have our guest Dave Sunstrom. How you doing, guys?
Great. How are
Never
you?
better.
Never better, never better.
We're doing awesome.
Well, this is going to be interesting because tonight's going to move us into the real late 80s and maybe even into the 90s because I think that's where you see the explosion of adult cartoons. And I want to talk a little bit about adult cartoons. And of course, tonight is our premier chance on this channel to interact with our audience and get their feedback on a lot of stuff too. But it kind of hits us all differently because as we were kids, we see cartoons for kids, we see Bugs Bunny and Super Friends and stuff like that. And we even may tend to watch it when we get a little older. I remember watching it, not telling my friends I still watch, Super Friends after school or He-Man or something like that. But you grow out of it to a degree. You kind of just grow out of it. You're kind of like, yeah, I don't do that as much anymore. But then suddenly, which is interesting because cartoons were originally made for adults way back in the 50s, 40s, and 50s. But suddenly, what happens is you get this onslaught of cartoons that are aimed for adults. And I was on board. I mean, I loved them. I still really loved them. Late 80s, coming out in the 90s. And we are going to be talking all about that today, where we were when we started. Hey, I like cartoons again, that kind of thing, and our favorite ones, some of the funny ones and some of the darker ones. I know some of the darker ones out there. But first, before we do that, I just want to say hi to the people in the chat channel. Thrash Pondo, who do we got in here tonight?
Oh, we have a whole Jim Dandy bunch of people so far. Spike Spikerson. Hello, Spike says, what are we
Hey,
going to be
Spike.
doing? Oh, what are we going to do tonight, Brain? The same thing we always do. Try and take over the world. Trey Ross Myers in the house says, hi, y'all.
Hey, Tracy, how you doing?
Nancy D. With my same response, the whole try to take over the world. Hi, Nancy D. Good to see you. Lance Cheffins here says, hi, you guys.
Hiya, Lance.
Let's see.
And who
Scrolling
else do
down.
we got here?
Oh, we have the Hungry Jerk.
Hungry
Hey,
Jerk.
Lancelot.
Hey, Lancelot. I think that's probably for Lance Chafin, right?
Yes, I'm certain it is. And as I scroll down, oh look, we have a John H in the house.
John
Good to
H.
saying good to see you, Thrash. I'm sure that's in reminiscence of me not being here last Monday. Yes, it's nice to be back.
The
It
truth
was nice
is
to-
I hired him back. We negotiated his salary. I was paying him nothing, and now I'm paying him half of that
I took a pay cut.
for him to be to be back on the show.
It's like in the Jetsons where George comes crawling back for his job on his hands and knees every week.
Right?
Let's see. Mr. Lead. We're going to get lead poisoning at this rate.
Mr. Led, glad you could be here this evening.
Hey and C. Hey Thrash. Welcome back. Hey Dave. Of course, to Mr. Dave being in the house with us. Oh,
yes.
You'll never guess who's here tonight.
Greetings
from South Carolina.
How you doing, Danny?
Danny.
He's in the house.
He's got to stay safe out there. I'm glad he packs heat because I'd hate for him to run into Bigfoot.
Oh, and we have a media heist in the house. Batman animated series was my go-to adult cartoon and anime in the early 90s.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. All right, what else? And we got John Collins too. We got to say hi to him.
We do. Oh, there he is. Oh, we lost him. There, he's back again. John Collins, the mortal king of nostalgia. Sorry, guys. Dave Sunstrom. Yes, indeedio.
Yes, indeedio. That's an awful kind moniker to throw on anyone.
Well, you, Dave, are our resident kind of TV scholar. on your channel, you do call yourself a little bit of a TV historian.
Yeah,
And over on your channel, you do, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, the
correct.
good stuff.
Yep.
And you call yourself a little bit of a TV historian. You say, mostly television. So let's start with you. What were your thoughts on the advent of the original, kind of shows that were coming out, these animated cartoons for adults, and what were some of your favorite ones?
Well, you mentioned that actually cartoons for adults aren't anything new, right? Even in the 60s, Ian, if you remember correctly, the Flintstones was prime time television on
Oh,
ABC.
wow.
The first handful of seasons. Now, we're used to seeing the Flintstones on Saturday mornings, right? And various iterations of the show. But the Flintstones was not necessarily, I don't know if it was similar to the Simpsons were in the late 80s, early 90s. Uh, they were aimed towards the entire family. So a television show that everyone could enjoy. And obviously the humor in the 60s probably was a little bit more innocent than the humor in the late 80s. But there are a lot of similarities between The Simpsons and the Flintstones. So I have a great love and affection for the Flintstones. And someone else mentioned the Jetsons. Similarly, I love the Jetsons, Spacely Sprockets. The theme song is awesome. Jetson,
Yeah.
kind of things. Those are iconic, right? They're just iconic. Everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about when I say that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, I think, where we're going here tonight is talking about kind of that renaissance of adult cartoons, or cartoons that adults could enjoy, starting in the late 80s. And of course, The Simpsons is high on my list. I'm a huge Simpsons fan, have been since the very, very beginning,
Yeah.
when they appeared as small segments on the Tracy Ullman Show. And then
Right.
someone else mentioned media. I didn't catch the full handle there, but someone else mentioned Batman the Animated Series. And you can see in my background there, it's only half of a frame, but I have a storyboard from that, as well as a lithograph there with the signature of Mark Hamill. And I loved Batman the Animated Series, and in particular those episodes where Mark Hamill would voice the Joker. I thought those were just phenomenal. But there's other ones as well. You think about that show, and it debuted on Fox Kids in the afternoon, right before or around the time of Batman Returns, and there were some amazingly complex episodes there. And it was so well received that they actually aired Batman the Animated Series in prime time on Fox for a number of weeks, right around the same time as its debut. I remember
Wow.
watching an episode called On Leather Wings. I think that was the first one to debut on prime time, probably right before The Simpsons, if I remember correctly. It was a Sunday evening. But if anyone hasn't seen Batman the Animated Series, and I think most folks have at least seen an episode or two these days, but I would refer you back to the 2-part Heart of Ice story with Mr. Freeze. And I defy anyone to say that that is not animation directed towards adults. It's just the storyline, the characters, the villain is complex. And it's just a really wonderful program. I do believe it won a number of daytime Emmys during its run. And Bruce Timm and Paul Dini were the creators of that. And, we all know who Harley Quinn is now.
Right. Yeah.
But do we all know that Harley Quinn did not exist before Batman the Animated Series? She was created specifically for Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
That's the kind of legacy that cartoon leaves. But The Simpsons, we could talk about that. We could dedicate an entire episode just to The Simpsons. What are we on? Season 30 something or other?
Yeah, I think it's the longest running
Crazy.
thing. I think John Collins writes here. Thrash, will you read that for us?
I would be honored. Can we please discuss The Simpsons and how they are now problematic because none of the characters change, get older in the story, doesn't seem to end? Problematic in my estimation. Thoughts on Archer?
Let me put it. I'm going to get back to that. I kind of want to make a couple of comments on what Dave said there, but I'll remember to get back on the Simpson thing there. Um, First of all, I do remember kind of watching some of those episodes of the Flintstones when I got older and really thinking, oh, I wasn't getting some of this stuff when I was a kid watching it. You know what I mean? I'm just a kid. I'm watching it and it is just, blowing by me. I'm just seeing animation and funny stuff and laugh tracks and, a guy, Wilma vacuuming with a dodo or whatever it is that she vacuums with.
Elephant.
Yeah, an elephant. That's right. And I didn't get in there, but there were so many adult jokes in there that I didn't quite understand until I got older. So I totally see that, and I forgot that, and I remember also that there were like some cigarette commercials or something like that.
Yeah, it was sponsored by a cigarette company early on.
Right, yeah, and then there was this big push for animation for kids. I mean, I don't know if the adult animation ever went away, but I just remember this big push. And I think one of the only celebrities I've ever met was Tracy Ullman. Actually, I met her in a bookstore in London, and I just happened to be there. And I was with a group of people. But I was starstruck. I was like, everyone else was talking to her, and I was just there. So I can't say I actually talked to her, but I was with the people who did talk to her. So I don't know if that counts or not. But I love The Simpsons. And Thrash, I want to get to you for as far as your take on it is concerned, and some of your favorite shows. I'm going to get to favorite shows in a bit, but let's go ahead and tackle this here. Any one of us can tackle it. Let me just say, first of all, my thoughts on Archer. Never seen a single episode, so I have no idea. I'm really kind of going up to the 90s on this. I mean, I do sometimes watch adult-themed cartoons today, but modern ones I'm not really talking about for the most part. I mean, I'm not going to prohibit it. You're not going to go to jail or anything, but I'm just not talking about it. But does anybody see the a problem with that? Does anybody? How did I
with the ageless characters on The Simpsons?
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I don't. So I see a bigger problem with The Simpsons. I've been watching the current season with my youngest son, over the course of the last month or so on Disney Plus. It's okay. Disney Plus is amazing. You've got all seasons of The Simpsons available. And the bigger problem for me is, and Lisa's still an 8-year-old, right? Even in this current season that I'm watching right now, she's still 8 after what? 8. The Simpsons debuted in 89. 89. So, she should be almost 40. But she's still 8, and that's the way it has to be. You can't, unless you're going to do like a revamp or a reboot, a reinterpretation, a reimagination where you had the characters older. I think they do have to stay the same age, and that's the beauty of animation and cartoons. They can do that. Whereas like the Brady Bunch, we watch those kids get older over time. I think the bigger issue with The Simpsons is just exactly that. What's left to do. And also what was biting commentary and satire 30 years ago is somewhat tame. And my point being is it's, easily accessible and well received on Disney Plus, which is perceived, at least here in the US, as a family type streaming service. I remember back in the early 90s, my kids told some neighbors in our neck of the woods here in northern Utah. Very religious community there, but told their neighbors that their dad let them watch The Simpsons. And I was subject for ridicule and hazing because I was such a bad parent.
Oh, no.
That kind of thing doesn't exist anymore. Everybody accepts The Simpsons. Everybody understands it better, recognizes that they're actually underneath it all a very loving family. And it's just accepted as fairly wholesome. Every once in a while, they'll do something that's a little bit pushes the envelope, but fairly wholesome humor.
Right.
I think it's just that what's left to do.
Right.
At some point, you kind of run out of stories to tell, and It's
Well,
not that it
Simpsons
isn't
is
entertaining, but it has lost a little bit of its bite and edge over the
yeah.
years.
Hasn't it taken a hit? The stuff like that. The last I
No,
heard.
I don't know. What do you
Are
think, Thrash? You're
It,
nodding
it,
your head.
there's cracks in their ratings. I mean, it's almost like, well, Saturday Night Live is rebounding, so I don't want to compare it to Saturday Night Live, but it's one of those shows where it's been on so long, it has a loyal following. People still watch it, but they're not really behind it. You have to remember, when it first came out, it was biting satire. I remember watching it when it first came out and going, "Oh, can they say that? Can they do that?" And you don't really get that much anymore. But yeah, but people are still watching it, but it's not really what it was when
Right.
it first came out. I will say one thing though, as far as the characters never aging, I think that's the beauty of it. All
Mhm.
other shows, particularly ones that have young cast members, run into the problem of what do you do when those cast members grow up? I mean, take Dawson's Creek, not Ponds's Pond, Dawson's Creek. They were in high school for what, 40 years? And then
Yeah.
they had to do a revamp where they all go off to college and all end up going to Boston. Thankfully, there are a lot of colleges there. So they had to actually reinvent itself just because the young people are getting older. The Simpsons doesn't have that problem. The problem they do have is a number of them, sadly, have passed on and are very discreetly written out of the series. And
Right.
sadly, as we reach the fourth decade of The Simpsons, we might see that more and more. So, does it have a few years left in it? I'm certain it does, but I don't know if it has much more than a few. And
Yeah.
if I could just speak to the Archer for just one moment, please, because John was nice enough to ask about that. I was something of a fan of the show, and I love the concept of a private eye show done as an office comedy, and that was great. But I think they went too far the other way. They tried to reinvent themselves. And I think in doing so, they lost a lot of the magic. And I still watch it from time to time, but I think they ran into the problem of this sort of revamping. When you reinvent yourself, don't be surprised if the new invention isn't as well received as the old.
Yeah, and I mean, let's Archer doesn't have the same problem The Simpsons has. It hasn't been around. It has been around a decade now, but we're not going on 3 decades. And I'm with you.
Four.
I watched the first couple of seasons of Archer, and then it just kind of lost me. And I don't know if it's all the changes. I get it. You want to broaden the storyline a little bit and do things differently. But it didn't stay with me the way that a great example, The Simpsons did. I was an avid, loyal Simpsons viewer for probably the first 10 to 15 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly and the way they've changed. I mean, I think the Simpsons. I loved them when they first came out. I mean, I did love them, but I think that they hit their stride around season 3, and like season 3 to like season 12, I think is just the golden years for Simpsons.
The
I
Conan O'Brien years.
Yeah, right. Well, I know we've got a lot of comments coming in. Let's turn our attention to some of these comments for just a bit here. Then I want to talk about maybe some other uh, uh, cartoons rather than only The Simpsons.
Sure. Let's see here. Nancy D says gargoyles.
I remember that. I do remember that. I've not seen it. There were a few. I know a few obscure ones that we'll get to. Hopefully, we'll get to ones that I recommend highly. But
Lynn Chafin said, "What about Johnny Quest?" I'm guessing since that was actually from the '60s, that doesn't fall under the umbrella of tonight's discussion, but it is a good one.
I enjoyed Johnny Quest. I think it's still a little bit more aimed toward that maybe teenage young kid years.
It aired on Saturday mornings. It was directed towards, your preteens and early teens.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, number one dude in the house. Hello,
Number
number
one
one
dude.
dude. Dr. Katz was funny back in the day. It certainly was.
Loved Dr. Katz. I absolutely treasured Dr. Katz. It was one of my all-time favorite highlights of my week. Dr. Katz and Mystery Science Theater. I would watch those on Comedy Central, formerly known as Ha. Do you remember that when it was called Ha TV? Yeah, it was called Ha originally. Yeah,
Well,
and
didn't they combine two networks? Didn't they combine Ha and Comics Network or something, and it became Comedy
Oh,
Central.
maybe they did. I didn't know. I just know that it was on the same channel on my television. It was Ha, and then, but Dr. Katz is a hilarious show. That show did kind of fade out though too. It kind of got like, okay, just comics sitting around talking. It gets a little old, but really good. Bob, the guy who played his son, is in Bob's Burgers now, I think. So
Yes.
yeah,
H. John Benjamin, who
yeah.
was also the voice of Archer.
Oh, is he? He's also the voice of Benjamin Katz on Dr. Katz. Did you like Dr. Katz, Steve? I mean, Dave. Sorry.
I'm gonna go against the tide here. I did not enjoy.
Oh,
Dr.
you
Katz.
didn't. Oh, okay. All right. I get it. Hey, it's all taste.
Yep.
You know what
It
I mean?
is. It is, and I can totally respect those that love it because there's shows I love that others don't love. That's what makes the world so wonderful.
Yes. Right. Right on. Well, who else we got here? What
Oh,
else?
Hungry Jerk says, I tried the new Johnny Quest and Speed Racer. No.
All right. I got it.
Yeah. Oh, Tracy Ross Myers says, the Brady Kids?
It's a kid's show, but absolutely loved it when it was on. Early 70s on ABC it actually was the backdoor pilot for both Super Friends and a couple other shows. They had guests like the Lone Ranger and Superman and Wonder Woman on it. It was fun.
Oh,
and
wow.
wasn't the magical bird that was voiced by drawing a blank, the guy who played the corporal in F Troop?
Larry Storch.
Thank you, Larry
Yeah.
Storch. I knew you'd do that, Dave.
Yeah. Larry's done a ton of animation voice work. He's great.
Yeah.
Still alive, 99, I think, years old.
Wow.
His brother passed on, but he's still alive. Very good. Oh, Danny Staten says, I liked Scooby Doo.
Me
Yeah,
too.
another
lot of
kids
people
show
did.
though. Another kids show.
Me too.
Let's see what else we got here.
Well,
Lance Chevin says X-Men in the 90s was good.
yeah, that was actually really good. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy the episodes that I did happen to catch. Wasn't quite a huge fan, not as big a fan of that as I was the movies, but I did enjoy watching it. Let's put the comments on hold for just a minute and get back to the discussion here. I have a question for you. So at this point, we've kind of talked a little bit about comedy, Dr. Katz, Simpsons, that kind of thing. I think we couldn't, I have to at least mention Beavis and Butthead. I mean, that's obviously something in the 90s, but what about, and what we did mention Batman. So I apologize. I lost my train of thought there, but what about other like serious cartoons? And I'm going to throw one out here and I want to know if you guys have seen it and what you thought of it, but it's seriously dark. It's seriously dark and it's a cartoon. It came on Liquid Television and I had all the seasons. I had all the episodes on VHS. It was called The Max. Did anybody ever watch The Max?
The Max was based on a comic book series.
Oh,
Yeah.
was it?
Yep.
I see, I'm so ignorant of comic books.
I saw a handful of episodes. I thought you were going to mention there was another one there too. Another one that was part of Liquid Television with the girl. Later on, it became a feature film with Charlize Theron. What was the
Aeon
name?
Flux.
Aeon Flux was on that as well. I thought you were going to mention Aeon Flux. I probably watched more Aeon Flux than The Max, but yeah, I guess they were a little too avant-garde for me for whatever reason. But I watched and experimented with both of them.
Oh, okay, cool.
Neither stuck.
Not, yeah, The Max stuck more for me than Aeon Flux, although I did, see it. I don't know. There was something dark. It was drawn to The Max. It was very surreal and very interesting. Yes,
It was very dark. I mean, the main character, the female, is an assault victim.
Yeah.
And we find out, spoiler alert, we find out over the course of the show that the Max is basically her mind trying to cope with that and creating a protector to defend her from this random acts of violence in the world. So when you start putting it together, it's actually very grim.
Yeah, it's a grim show. Not my favorite ending at all, but very interesting. Very interesting. All right. Well, let's. What other cartoons were there during that period? What about you, Thrash Pondo?
Well,
Talk to us.
it's funny you mention the non-comedic element because the 80s were a weird time for me because I was just getting into that, oh, this is so lame phase where
Mhm.
even though deep down I still like cartoons, I wouldn't let myself enjoy cartoons. I'm a young adult now. I have more sophisticated tastes. And I kind of put
Right.
them on the back burner. But there was one that I truly loved, and this is going to come no surprise to you guys. It was Thundar the Barbarian.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
loved that cartoon. Voiced by the late, great Robert Ridgely, who was the voice of the 70s. He was Tarzan, he was Flash Gordon, and he was in a bunch of other stuff. He even did a couple of live performances. He was in The Kid from Caper and a few other things. And and the little known fact, the voice actor who did Ookla
mhm.
was the second incarnation of Fred Flintstone. When the
Oh,
original Fred
really?
Flintstone died, the voice actor took over, later went on to become Ookla. You've probably seen him. He did a few episodes of Hogan's Heroes and a few other things. His name escapes me. But
Mm.
Thunder the Barbarian was actually probably the high watermark for children's entertainment because it really, and a lot of people say that about cartoons, it's not really a kid's show. This one wasn't. It was a post-apocalyptic action adventure series put on Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, there wasn't that. I mean, there was some humor in it, but it wasn't that sort of very revamped, done over and over and over again, cliche humor that most kids' cartoons had. The animation was excellent, and I was devastated when they canceled it. I thought it was actually. They've been talking about doing a reboot or even a feature film for years, and they haven't. But of the
I would
80s, that is probably my favorite cartoon.
I would love to see a movie of that. And plus, they had a lightsaber, right? I mean,
The
it
Sun
was a
Sword.
it was
The
a sun
Sun
sword,
Sword.
but I mean, it was a lightsaber, and
It
so we
was.
loved
It
it.
was.
We loved it. Did you like Thundar, Dave?
I didn't.
Or did-
I only watched a couple of episodes. You probably got on the wrong Sunstrom. I think, Steve, that's probably more Steve's time frame. You got to remember when Thundar debuted. We're talking, I was in my 20s.
Yeah, right.
And so I didn't watch it. I viewed it as children's programming and didn't watch that one.
But probably you felt the same way about Black Star too.
Yep.
Remember that one?
All of
Yeah.
those. Yeah. Captain
I-
Planet. Yep. all
I
of those.
tried. I tried to like Black Star,
Did
but
you?
it was the worst of all possible worlds for me. It was too adult to be a kid's cartoon and too childish to be considered an adult cartoon. So
Right.
it alienated both sides of the coin, if you ask me.
Right. Well, I thought it carried, and I think Thundar the Barbarian carries better than say something like He-Man. I mean, He-Man is just even for me, even as a kid, I couldn't stand He-Man. I thought it was just completely ridiculous. I just didn't care for it. And talk about a disappointment, because the action figures came out before the cartoon, and based on the action figures, I thought I was going to get something totally different. I thought it was going to be like a Conan kind of a thing, but it ended up not being a Conan thing at all. It ended up being very childish. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes these things are just little too childish. Well, let's get into a little bit. Let's take some comments because I know those comments are scrolling in.
Let me
And
throw
I
out a
ha-
couple more names while we're just looking at the comments.
Okay.
I'm not gonna elaborate on them, but King of the Hill,
All right, yes, of course. Well, we need,
Duckman.
yes, Duckman, yes. King of
Just
the
a
Hill.
couple more to
We're gonna.
chew
We're,
on.
okay. Well, because you're our guest tonight, Dave. Let's chew on those.
Okay.
Let's start.
Oh, and
let's
one
start
more.
with
One more.
okay.
The Critic. Does
Oh,
anybody
yes.
remember the Critic?
Oh, loved it.
Oh,
2 seasons.
John Lovitz.
Started
Yes.
started on The Simpsons. There was an episode with the Critic on The Simpsons.
Oh, there was. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and
I thought that was a great show.
yeah, wonderful program. Like you said, Thrash Pondo, 2 seasons. John Lovitz, great comedian. And Duckman over on the USA Network, if you remember, in the 90s, had Jason
Alexander.
Jason
Alexander, yes.
Seinfeld. And the animation style was just crazy. But, I mean, you mentioned Beavis and Butthead. Mike Judge went and took everything that he learned while doing Beavis and Butthead on MTV and really turned to Fox and put out just a marvelous television series that ran for, I think, 7 or 8 seasons in King of the Hill. And I really grew to love those characters on that show as well. And around the same time he was doing the movie Office Space, just really talented feller and did amazing things. And, really haven't heard a lot from Mike Judge in the last decade or so. I kind of wonder what happened to the guy.
I think Extract was the last show he did. I don't know, or movie he did. But I really like. And King of the Hill was based on a character from Beavis and Butthead, but it was Mr. Anderson. But, he ended up going in a different direction. Those are Duckman, seriously underrated. So is the critic, seriously underrated. What do we got as far as comments are concerned? I don't want to get too far away from people who have joined us by the way of comments tonight.
Dave Clooney is in the house. Says,
Hey,
hey
Dave.
gang.
Hey.
Let's see. Johnny says Winston sponsored the Flintstones.
Yes,
that was a
right.
cigarette.
Yeah, you can see all those crazy ads on YouTube. It's pretty funny to watch.
Number One Dune says King of the Hill is funny. Mike Judge, enough said.
Yeah, my favorite Mike Judge though is Daria. That's my favorite one that he's done.
I'll buy that.
My favorite Mike Judge is a movie called Evolution.
Oh, did he do that?
No. It's not. It's not called Evolution. Holy cow! Now I've got to look it up. Evolution. I was thinking about that the other day because that was an Ivan Reitman movie. We talked to Ivan Reitman.
Yeah,
I know he did Office Space.
No. This is a movie where one of the brothers, the Wilson brothers, I believe it was not Owen. What's Luke Wilson goes into the future and sees what the world becomes.
Yeah, and everybody's stupid.
Idiocracy.
Yeah,
Idiocracy is an incredible movie. 2006, though. Like I said, I don't know what Mike Judge has been doing lately, but that was a great movie.
That was pretty good. I thought Extract was honestly one of my favorite films.
Who was in that one? I don't remember that one.
Jason Bateman and the girl from that 70s show that ended up marrying Ashton Kutcher.
Mia Kunis?
Yeah.
Is it
Ukrainian?
A more recent movie? Is it a more recent movie?
2011 or somewhere around there, maybe something like that. It's really good. It's a Mike Judge movie. He's in it too, so I gotta
check it out.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good show. I actually really enjoy.
Oh yeah, how could we miss South Park?
South Park,
anyone? Yes. I did not watch South Park. It was a little too edgy for me.
I watched the first probably 5 to 6 seasons of South Park.
Yeah.
And again, I just kind of after a while, but every once in a while I go back. Like South Park just had some episodes on COVID, which were just hilarious. Hilarious. And so every once in a while I'll go back and watch just kind of get in and then get back out. But very funny. I mean, South Park was a poorly animated spoof of Peanuts, the Peanuts characters. And the first few seasons were just delightful.
They really were, particularly the Christmas episodes they did. I thought those were hilarious.
And hilarious. Mr. Hanky, how can the beloved character Mr. Hanky? Oh.
Well,
and it's funny.
The theme song too was done by Primus. So.
Primus.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Thrash? It's funny.
Oh, and the feature film. Most people when they see it, it's not only is it hysterical, but most people don't realize it was actually done in the style of a 1930s musical.
Yeah.
It actually, like scene for scene, the way it all comes together into a crescendo. And I'm watching it with a buddy of mine who was also a film buff, and I go, how many people are getting this? But
incredibly clever and incredibly crude. So, with all of us, with us saying how wonderful it is, let's not forget how crude that movie was.
I watched about 10 minutes of it and turned it off personally.
I could see why you would, Pastor. I could see why you would.
I was like, I never watched it. I didn't care for their like NAMBLA references and stuff like that. That really kind of bothered me. So
and Hungry Jerk says, speaking of it, Hungry Jerk says adult cartoons. I thought you meant like Fritz the Cat. Not quite that adult.
I'm a big Ralph Bakshi fan. And
Yeah.
that's the animator that did Fritz the Cat. But there's other movies that I enjoy much more. I haven't seen Fritz the Cat. I've heard about it,
You're right.
and I've seen stills from it. But if I want to watch something by Ralph Bakshi, it's going to either be The Lord of the Rings or American Pop, which was fantastic.
I just saw that again recently. It was
I
amazing.
thought about that when I made the title for this. That's why I said cartoons for adults instead of adult cartoons. That's actually, that went through my head. I'm like, maybe somebody get the wrong idea here. So.
And speaking of Ralph Bakshi, either you gentlemen have any thoughts on his short-lived Saturday morning cartoon, The
Mighty Mouse?
Very good. Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Very well anticipated.
Yeah, you are the TV historian, Dave, for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known
you know
that.
what? He got a lot of flack for Mighty Mouse sniffing dust or whatever. To me, that all felt like overblown hyperbole almost to a certain extent. I thought it was okay. I've never been a big Mighty Mouse fan. So, I like my superheroes to be in most cases, with the exception of Underdog, to be in human form. But I thought it was okay, and I was interested in seeing it, given his rich legacy and reputation as an animator.
So you liked an Underdog? You liked Underdog?
Oh, I watched Underdog along with The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle as a kid.
Right,
and
right.
that now you're going back to shows cartoons I watched as a kid, and of course I loved Underdog.
Yeah. What about Hong Kong Phooey?
Of course, another great. Although now I look at it, and there's probably some things that people might take a little bit of offense to. I mean,
yeah.
I'm married to an Asian woman. I have Asian children, and some of that would probably be maybe a little bit more uncomfortable.
A little
days.
cringy.
But as a kid, a little cringy. But as a kid, loved it.
Yeah. What else we got as far as these comments are concerned?
Oh, but one thing before we move on, speaking about Ralph Bakshi, of course, he got to start doing Spider-Man, the 1960s Spider-Man. But that whole episode with Mighty Mouse and the dust,
Yeah.
the whole thing was a heroine had given him a flower. And when I say heroine, I mean a female hero, not a drug, had given him this flower as sort of a memento to take with him while he went on an adventure. And what happened was he had used it so often, it had crumbled to dust. And when he went to sniff it, the dust went up his nose. And unfortunately, that was interpreted as drug use. But it was just a flower. It wasn't actually drugs. And I just want that read to the record because I like the show.
But wait, that you're saying that wasn't a drug reference, though? That he just this is just kind of accidentally drawn in?
And HR
well, okay, possibly.
Has nothing to do with that either. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. All right. I begrudgingly admit there may have been some innuendo there, but
right.
At least giggling by the animators as they were doing it.
It is Ralph Bakshi, after all, and he was known for his sense of humor. John H. says, SNL stinks now. It just exists to bash Trump.
No one's safe. No one's safe on SNL. They have a good time poking fun at Biden as well.
Do they? I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah, I still watch it. And I agree with John H. that it's no longer the program it once was. As a matter of fact, I was talking to someone about this earlier in the comment section. I don't think it's been good since Phil Hartman passed away, died. I loved SNL, the early seasons. But I think that I hear this a lot about bashing Trump. And the reality is SNL is going to bash whoever they can. And Trump certainly was a target as president, and it depends on how much you put yourself out there as a target. But they're going to go after anyone they can, and they've gone after Biden now, and they will continue to do so until the next president.
That's interesting because I hadn't really watched any of the newer ones, but they did an adult cartoon on their TV Funhouse.
Yeah, and that had the ambiguously gay duo.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that came on Saturday night because that was hilarious. And he did is it Rob Schmiegel? Is he the guy that does Triumph? Is he the guy that does Triumph the Underdog too?
Do you mean Triumph not the underdog, the insulting dog?
Triumph the insult comic dog.
Yes.
He is hilarious. If there's a
Smeagol's a funny guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he had his own show for a while. He had his own puppet show for a little while on, I think it was on Comedy Central.
I
And
suspect if we look him up, we will see that he's done a ton over the last 10, 15 years.
yeah, it was it was a while back, but I think it was there off the popularity of his TV Funhouse, and but basically it was a group of
Yes,
animals.
the Annapels, and it was done as a Saturday morning show.
I
Yeah,
don't think so. Was it
well,
Saturday
no,
morning?
no. It was done in the spirit of us. It was done at like 11
Yeah,
o'clock at night
okay,
on Comedy Central. But when you
right.
watched it, it was done where he comes out and he introduces his friends and we're gonna have fun today, right, kids? And then they
Yeah,
do all kinds of drug references and adult things. But it was done
yeah.
in the
The
framework.
the animals all work at they all work at a testing factory where they get tested for things. It's kind of the premise of the show. So they're all getting makeup and stuff put on them, and to see if there's an allergic reaction. But they love their jobs. It's a pretty funny show. So
Hey,
all right,
So,
a couple
oh,
things real quick, if I can just
oh,
respond to a couple comments. I'm seeing John H
sure.
is a response. John H is following up that comment. He says he liked Daryl Hammond's Trump better than Alec Baldwin's. I agree, John. And
Oh,
then
good.
also Terrell says mentions Phil Hartman in Futurama, which is another show. If we don't say anything about, we really missed the boat. Futurama
Yeah.
was a fantastic show that ran for many seasons on Fox before moving over to, was it USA for a final couple of seasons? But great stuff.
Cartoon
Yeah.
Network, maybe,
Cartoon Network, maybe.
or the Sci-Fi Channel. One of those two, Cartoon or
Yeah.
Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right. Yeah. Those that was a good one. Futurama. I was a fan. I didn't stick with it, unfortunately, but I certainly was a fan.
Loved Bender. Bender was great.
Yes.
The robot.
Right. Well, go ahead, Thrash.
When I worked for Suncoast, I got into a heated argument with a member, a representative of Fox Network, over what I thought was very unethical treatment of Futurama, moving its time slot around. And it was a cocktail party. I had a few cold ones, and it got a little heated. So I actually fought with a Fox employee over its treatment of Futurama.
Well, thanks
Oh,
for going to
really?
bat for it, because it was a show that wasn't treated well by Fox and got moved
No.
around too much.
No. And it was deliberate on many levels, I think. So let's see. We have another one from a media heist here. Here we are. Gundam Macross Akira was very mature, intelligent animation of its time. A breath of fresh air from Disney-dominated cartoon shows at that time. Batman and X-Men, the animated series, was an exception.
Yeah, those were all good. I know some of those. One of the ones that maybe we haven't talked about came out, and I can't remember when it was, the 70s, which I feel was. Oh, can you pull that off? Pull
Oh,
that
of course.
off.
I was wondering about them. There we go.
Was G-Force. Did you
Yeah,
ever
Battle
watch
of the Planets.
Battle of the Planets? Right. That was
Yeah.
you can watch that today. And,
Yeah.
yeah, go
It was
ahead.
based on G-Force was based on a Japanese program called, well, actually, so there's been 3 versions of G-Force
Yes.
on television.
Yes.
And that's because Battle of the Planets was an amalgamation of, I believe, Gatchaman 1 and Gatchaman 2 over in Japan. And
Yeah.
then they went and they repurposed it all and created a new program called G-Force. And by the way, the characters all look the same, but they have different names in all 3 iterations. And then there was another one in the 90s, again,
Mhm.
taking the same material. I think this time there might have been, was there a 3rd season of Gatchaman? I can't remember. But this is all Japanese animation. And they take parts of multiple seasons and construct it and put it into a new show. Again, same animation, different character names. And this time it was Eagle something or other, Eagle Squadron or something like that. That one didn't last as long, but boy, I was, Battle of the Planets, Ian, that came out in 1977, right at the same time, or to take advantage of Star Wars, the Star Wars.
Oh,
thing.
wow. Yeah.
And so I was on board for that. I wanted to watch anything that I thought was remotely similar to Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, I love. I was too. I mean, I was a little kid when Star Wars came out, but I mean, I loved it, and I loved Battle of the Planets, and it's just one of those things that kind of held up. It's a little bit more mature. Same with something like Voltron, and a few other of those Japanese repurposed Japanese into English ones. Toy Galaxy's got a really good video on GeForce
Oh,
where
really?
they tell
Have
the
to
whole
watch it.
story. It's really good. I was going to do, back before I was doing my 5 facts, I was doing abridged histories,
Mhm.
and so I was going to do an abridged history on GeForce, and I looked into it. And I just was like, I'm not going to do this. This is way too much. This is going to take like 30 minutes to do an abridged history of GeForce, but because it's so complicated, because it was like based on 2 Japanese shows, and then they repurposed it. And even listening to the Toy Galaxy Dan Larson explain it's like following him through a maze. You got to watch it like a couple times to kind of get it down.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Hey, one other to mention real quick, since you brought up the 70s in animation. Again, if we didn't mention this, we'd be doing cartoons for adults a disservice. And it did air on Saturday mornings, but the Star Trek, the animated series, which I
Yeah.
think debuted in 73, you had almost all of the original voice actors. Walter Koenig wasn't invited back because they didn't have enough money for him. They let him write a story instead for the show. But really, most Trekkies consider the animated series to be the 4th season of Star Trek,
They
and
consider
with
it
good
canon.
reason. The scripts were amazing. It was the same script writers in many cases, and yeah, they were only a half hour long, and the animation was a little bit limited, but those were some pretty great stories, and I enjoyed the heck out of them.
Right on, right on.
Likewise.
What else we got as far as comments are concerned that we can
Let's
riff on
see.
here?
Hungry Jerk here says, I liked Robotech.
I vaguely remember that. That was another one that was kind of like Battle of the Planets, wasn't it?
I didn't watch it. I thought it was more in the
much either.
Transformers realm, but
Oh, was it? Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
know.
I vaguely remember it. What else we got?
John Collins says, Dave, are you trying the new Starlight Coca-Cola? And were those commercials in the middle of the Andy Griffith show where they filmed to be separated of the show?
So I haven't tried the new Starlight Cola yet, and I'm not sure I quite understand your question, John. Andy Griffith show, as well as a lot of shows in that time frame, back in the 60s and 70s, they would create commercials that would flow seamlessly from the show. So, ones I've shared on my live stream, they've been selling Sanka. They've been selling Post Toasties. I know Dick Van Dyke did the same thing with dishwashing detergent. I've seen the same thing with shows like Operation Petticoat. They just they would, and I think it's a brilliant idea. It's not like they were putting in, it wasn't product placement. It was actually its own commercial, but it would just, the story would end and then it'd fade into the same characters in a little mini story that would just run a minute long at most, and those were a lot of fun, and to me they would grab my attention a lot better than just your run-of-the-mill commercial.
Dave, I got a question for you. Have you ever drank Diet Pepsi?
Yes, sir.
And what do you think?
I don't like it as much. In a pinch, I'm not like one of those guys that will never drink it.
Right.
But in a pinch, I'll drink it, but that's not my preferred cola.
Right. I feel the same way. I when I was a Diet Coke drinker, if I went to a restaurant and I asked for a Diet Coke and they said we only have Diet Pepsi, I wouldn't say no.
Right.
But there was a little part of me that died inside.
I try to chastise them a little bit, give them a little bit of a hard time for not having the Diet Coke.
It's the difference between Pepsi and Coke for the big boxes that they use at restaurants. It's crazy the amount of difference it is in price. That's why a lot of them do it.
Really?
It's just, it's not like it's like, oh, if we spent like $1 extra, we could get Coke and make all these people happy. It's literally like I can't remember it, but it's an insane amount for the. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever seen the big boxes where they hook them up to the.
Yeah.
But it's an insane amount of difference between those two. So
They
that's
sell the
why.
syrup almost at cost because it's promotional. They're trying to get you to acquire a taste for it.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Okay,
I know. I
what-
work. I work at a restaurant, and it's like people get insane when you say Pepsi. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Spike Spikerson says Archer is the best animated series ever. It's science. Love the two.
I love the enthusiasm on that one.
Oh, Denny Staten says I quit watching SNL when Aykroyd left. LM laughed my ass off.
Yeah.
Well, you missed out on some amazing seasons with Eddie
That's-
Murphy, Joe Piscopo,
Yeah.
Phil Hartman, Mike Myers, Dana Carvey. Oh, so many good seasons there after Dan Aykroyd left. But I'll give you, Danny, that the not ready for primetime players in the late 70s there, or mid to late 70s, they were great. You know, they were really wonderful.
Those were good. I mean, you know, I like the 80s, the late 80s, 90s. I like the Phil Hartman era, but I also really did like the David Spade,
Adam Sandler,
era as
Chris
well.
Farley.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I started tapering off that Next Generation when they started getting Will Ferrell and stuff like that. I mean, I did enjoy it, but I wasn't as into it. I think whatever was in high school, whatever you were watching in junior high and high school for Saturday Night Live, it's like the first kind of, we get to stay up late and on Saturday and we get to watch something. So whatever that was in high school, that's kind of like your peak, like
You might be right. You might be onto something there, Ian. Maybe this has more to do with where we all were and what we were doing than anything that SNL is doing.
Right. Could be. What else we got as far as suggestions are concerned?
Terrell Behringer is in the house. Hello, guys. It's been quite a while. Yes, it has. Good to see you again, my
good to see you as well. All right.
John H. says Johnny Quest was prime time in 74, but goes on to say 1964. Sorry. You were close.
I did not realize that it ever played on prime time. Interesting.
Mm.
John H. then goes on to say, I like Comedy Central when it aired classic shows like Steve Allen and Ernie Kovacs. I refuse to watch The Daily Show or Colbert's Show.
Daily Show originally was awesome with Craig
Kilborn.
Craig Kilborn. Loved it. And then I didn't hate when Jon Stewart took over, at least initially. But the Craig Kilborn era was gold. He did the 5 questions at the end of the show.
5 questions and your daily moment of zen.
Yeah, they were great, man. What else we got?
Hungry Jerk says there is a dumb cartoon with a milkshake and some French fries. Yes, that's called Aquatine Hunger Force, and they actually are. It's a meat patty, a milkshake, and a large order of fries, and they fight crime, and hilarity ensues. And it's for very, very, very off balance teenagers, I'm afraid.
That's a Cartoon Network show, right?
It certainly is.
Have you guys all seen the Mr. T Cartoon Network show that they had that was styled after Scooby-Doo, but definitely adult?
The Mike Tyson show, you mean?
Mike Tyson?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me, Mike
Yes,
Tyson.
I have seen that.
Yeah.
The Mike
I
Tyson
have seen
Adventures or Mike Tyson Mysteries, whatever they call
Yes,
it.
definitely have. I've seen a few episodes of that. There's some weird stuff that comes on at the end. Like there's these days. There's like infomercials that come on really late at night on Cartoon Network. Have you seen any of those?
Yeah.
Oh, like they get like it's so late at night that they start playing them that it's almost like a drug trip, and you're like, is this happening? And it's very seamless because it starts out like a regular show, and it just gets increasingly bizarre. You got to look at this. You got to look them up. They're pretty.
If
wild.
I have to stay up past 10 o'clock, Ian, it's just not going to happen.
Well,
I'm
you
old.
can.
I'm old,
you
dude.
You can watch them on YouTube, but the infomercials, the Boom Shakalaka one was my favorite one.
Is that the one where the guy keeps cutting off parts of his body, but they keep filming?
And Too Many Cooks. Dave, you've got to
I
watch Too
love
Many Cooks.
Too Many Cooks is
You've
on
gotta-
YouTube.
yes.
Ian, put a link for Too Many Cooks in this.
I will find it. You've got to watch Too Many Cooks. It gets bizarre. I'll send you a link to that, Dave. But you got to watch
I'll look it up. I'll look up Too Many Cooks. Another one that we have to talk about that is more current, but I'm surprised no one's mentioned. Maybe it's just too current for folks, but Rick and Morty is just amazing science fiction.
Pickle Rick. I have a Pickle Rick hat.
Yes,
Yeah.
Pickle Rick. Oh my gosh, when that episode aired. And there's just some things that show does in terms of time travel and just it's really a show that it can be offensive at times, and it's not for the faint-hearted, but holy cow, does that show make you think sometimes in between all of the humor and zaniness and science fiction and a little bit of trivia. Initially started out as a spoof of Back to the Future. It was
Yeah.
it was what's Marty and what's Doc?
The
Doc
Doctor.
and Marty.
Doc-
Doc
Doc
and
and
Marty was what
Yeah,
it was
Doc and
started
Marty.
out as.
Rick and
And
Morty.
became Rick and Morty. Yep.
Yes.
Right.
And the people who do it, it's the same guy who did Community.
Yeah.
His name
Dan.
eludes me for the moment.
Dan.
But
Have you ever heard of a musical girl named Ali Gozerin?
Mm-mm.
Gozerin. She does songs on about television shows, and she's doing a concept album right now on Rick and Morty. And she does a song actually called "Everything's Turning Up Millhouse." She used to be called Cosby Sweater, was the name of her. It was just her, and sometimes she'd have another person singing. But I think with all the controversy with Cosby, she changed it to just her name. And but she does songs on Arrested Development. She does songs on the one "Everything's Coming Up Millhouse" is a pretty cool song. It's parody. I'll put it in the chat channel here if anybody wants to listen to it. But I actually bought her whole album, and I think it's phenomenal. Everything's Coming Up Millhouse is good. But the reason why I bring it up now, or I just put it into the chat channel. But the reason why I bring it up now is she's actually doing last I heard, she was doing a whole concept album with Rick and Morty, and she's an awesome, awesome musician, really folksy. I want to say, I want to bring up a couple of these chats here. I just want to make sure we get everybody here. Lee, how you doing, brother?
Lee Mateus.
I am going to be getting a hold of you really soon. I know this is like Gen X show stuff, but you know a lot about one genre of music that I know not a lot about, and I'd love to have you on the show, and that is hip hop. Not really a hip hop fan, but I'm a fan of history. So I would love to get you on the show and talk about hip hop. And John Collins asked if I got his text. Yes, I did. And Terrell writes, go ahead. You can read that for us.
Ian, I've got a topic suggestion for you. Would you please consider doing Oscar winners who made the jump to TV on a future stream?
That would be interesting. That would be
I'm
really,
in.
yeah, I'm in too. So I'm always looking for topics, believe it or not. I mean, normally I'm going to get back to the whole podcast thing and then doing an episode of the live stream based on the podcast. But lately we've been like, what should we do? I mean, Thrash Pondos called me and texted me and said, hey, you have any ideas? I'm like, I don't have any ideas. What do you want to talk about? So a lot of these are just kind of throw them out there like spaghetti and see what sticks to the wall.
Hey,
what else do we got?
Lisa Fields has a great comment, and I'm skipping ahead because we're going to miss him. She says she doesn't like Rick and Morty, but she watched Adventure Time with her daughter, and she thought it was good. And Lisa, I watched Adventure Time with my sons, and I loved that show. Just, again, the world it created, a little bit trippy in terms of what they were doing there. And there's a great song, Making Bacon Pancakes. I don't know if you remember that one, Lisa, but my boys and I still sing that song sometimes.
I don't know. I don't know these references. Okay, go ahead.
She also says, I like Bob's Burgers. Tracy Myers says, I like Bob's Burgers.
I love Bob's Burgers, actually. I love Bob's Burgers. What else?
And Spike Spikerson also does a shout out. Ian Flux scared me. I can see that.
Right?
It was we actually talked about that on another channel. It was a very
It was on
intense piece.
Flick Snacks and Knickknacks,
Exactly.
along with Lee,
Yes,
who
that's right. And
he was
DJ
on there.
Anubis. And DJ
Yes,
Anubis.
and DJ Anubis was on as well. And by the way,
Bob,
I want to do just so I'm thinking here. I want to do one of these on grunge. I want to do one of these on grunge, and I want you to be there, Dave. And the reason why I want you to be there is because I kind of want to know, like when somebody eats something and you're like, "Oh, this is the best," and then they eat it and you're like, "What are you?" Like I want to I want like a whole orb from everybody who is really into it to people who didn't care for it that much to kind of get their opinion on it. So when we do the grunge episode, I certainly want you to be a part of that, even if it's just to say, I want to know like what
I'm a
was it that
trauma
you
victim. Grunge killed all my favorite bands.
liked? I don't think that's the case though, because I think that well, we'll get to that when we get to that episode. But I do want to know what was it that you liked or didn't like about it, mostly what you didn't like about it, but we'll get to that though one of these days. Sorry, let's get back to the show.
John H says Bob Ridgely was the 695 man on Uncle Croc's Rock Block.
Yep,
Either
that
you
was
guys
a
remember
live action spoof with Charles Nelson Riley. Riley was Uncle Croc, right?
And the show within the show was the drama behind the show, and his director was the late great Dr. Smith, better known as
Jonathan
Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very much. So yeah, I actually loved that show when I was a kid. Let's see what else we got here. John H says Harry Corden,
Not familiar with it at all.
racking
That
my
doesn't ring a
brains. I thought he meant Richard Corbin, but no,
What
I'm
about
not sure.
what about Dilbert? Did you guys like Dilbert?
Love Dilbert.
I
love
loved it
Dilbert.
for a minute. You
Yeah.
know, it's one of those things where the Scott Adams, the books, the comic, all that stuff. It was right at the advent of the internet, by the way. I remember pulling up the Dilbert comic every day and reading it on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed when it came to CBS primetime.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Elliott, I believe, was one of the voices on Dilbert. Didn't last very long, but yeah, I
Sadly.
enjoyed it for the minute that it was there.
I really did enjoy the cartoon. I thought it was great as well, along with Duckman. It was like two of the more underrated ones.
Mhm.
Scott Adams. What was the name? You just said
Scott Adams.
Scott Adams has an episode on the Joe Rogan podcast,
Mm.
which is really good 3-hour. He is actually a professional hypnotist. Many people don't know that. Yeah.
No,
I did not
didn't
know that.
Yes,
I did not
he
know
is a
that.
professional hypnotist. He's a weird guy too. He actually believes that we are living in the Matrix too. He's not a dumb guy, but
Would explain a lot.
he does believe we are living in a simulation. I don't know about the Matrix per se, but he does believe we're living in a simulation, and he is a professional hypnotherapist. So it's a very interesting one, but it'll give you some really good insights into Dilbert. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think what killed Dilbert, if I remember correctly, it was right around 2000, because they made a joke about Y2K, where Dilbert says, "What are we all so worried about? Just because we have a base 10 calendar and there's a big round number coming up." And I'm like,
Yeah.
you have a valid point there.
Right.
It was right around the time when primetime was being flooded with animated shows, and I think there was actually just too many to go around. I think the market for primetime animation just wasn't all there, and a lot got canceled, and some of them shouldn't have been.
Mhm.
So, but I did like Dilbert a lot. Let's see what. Lance Chafin says loved Thunder the Barbarian, as does Danny Staten. Oh, and look, the Hungry Jerks. There's a lot of love for Thunder out there.
Right.
Oh, this is a good one. I got to show this one. Spike Spikerson said Sam Raimi should have made an Evil Dead, the animated series. Ew.
Let me just say, Sam Raimi should have just made more Evil Dead. More Evil Dead. I need more Evil Dead. I love that movie series with all my heart.
Yeah.
Especially the last one, Army of Darkness.
Right. Yeah, Army of Darkness is a definite classic. What else we got?
John H says, yes, I think BN was dedicated to Bob R., Robert Ridgely, since he died shortly after. I'm just trying to remember what BN might stand for.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out.
Bare
too.
naked without the ladies. I don't, anyone? I'm sure somebody out there got that joke.
Yeah, I don't know.
John H. says he was also in one of my faves movies, That Thing You Do. Let's see. What else we got here? John Collins says, I always thought Top Cat was kind of adult and most of the Looney Tunes Snagglepuss.
You know, I think those were aimed at kids, but I think adults could love them. Similarly, getting to the late 80s, early 90s, the Animaniacs was that way. I know we were talking Pinky and the Brain at the beginning of the show, but I enjoyed Animaniacs from time to time. They did a good job of just like the Looney Tunes, just like some of those Hanna-Barbera characters like Top Cat. They did a good job of making the shows enjoyable for everybody, kids and adults alike.
I mean, it was adapted from Sergeant Bilko in
Yeah.
the same way the Flintstones was adapted from the Honeymooners.
Yep.
So, the templates were there. So,
Fair enough.
and
Adult Swim.
Daryl Johnson, Adult Swim. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
excellent stuff on Adult Swim.
There was that was the basically the television launching of liquid television.
Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, all that stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you know who-
Squidbillies.
do you know-
Squidbillies was on there. Was on Adult Swim.
I
Did you
just
watch-
found out about Birdman. You know who plays Birdman's daughter?
No.
No.
As a Friends fan, Ian, you might find this interesting. Do you remember there was a subplot where Chandler dates a woman that first dated Joey, the
Yeah.
sort of flaky actress?
Yeah.
She's now voicing she was voicing the daughter of Harvey Birdman.
Oh wow. Cool.
So she actually is working on Adult Swim.
Cool.
Let's see what else we got here. Liz Jeff, and I thought I saw Robbie Ann when the show first started.
Yeah, she's in the opening intro. She's that's just I just clipped together some pieces here and there of the show. I was actually supposed to be on their show yesterday, but they canceled. I guess Amy is sick, but they're going to be doing a Star Wars show, and at some point our schedules are going to meet up and we'll get together. I wanted to have them back on, but they've got a kind of a weird schedule. I mean, one of them lives on the East Coast and one of them lives on the West Coast, and I think it's all that they can do to keep their show going forward. So I've asked Robbie to be on a couple of times, and she's tried to make it, and then every time it's kind of last minute, can't do it. Sorry. So just one of those things.
Daryl John says, "Oh man, please hit the like button."
Oh yeah, of course. Hit the like button, everybody. Hit the like button. I think we're winding down a bit now. I feel it. Do you feel it? We got anything else?
I could talk cartoons all night.
Well,
Ren and Stimpy, a great one for
Okay,
sure.
all right.
Let me just throw that one back on.
And how can we ignore SpongeBob? Yes, it was directed to kids, but again, I enjoyed the heck out of watching SpongeBob when my kids were young. And there's what's that, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy?
I don't know.
Oh, so good. Tim Conway and what's
Ernest
the other guy's name?
Borgnine.
Ernest
Borgnine.
Superheroes that SpongeBob admired, and they were patterned after Batman and Robin with a little bit
Or
of
Aquaman and Aqualad.
Yeah, it's just
And-
very funny. Oh my god!
They're both living in a
SpongeBob is
retirement home now at
hilarious.
this point.
Yes, retirement home.
Ren and
and
Stimpy
implications-
was hilarious.
Ren
I
and
loved Ren
Stimpy
and
was
the
so
gross
funny.
out humor.
Yeah.
Now, did you
Yeah.
ever see? I don't know if there was the same animator or not, but it was kind of a gross show. I think I've seen like maybe one or two episodes. It was called The Brothers Grunt.
No,
Oh yes,
I
it
thought you
was-
were going to say. Go ahead.
it was a ripoff of Beavis and Butthead. What they did was they would showcase music videos, and the subplot was there were these bizarre monks who were looking for a missing brother and had all these weird adventures. But again, it was crude animation and
I don't think
current
that.
MTV.
I'm not sure we're talking about the same one.
Where it was about the brothers. One of their brothers leaves and they go on a quest to try to find them. Isn't that the premise?
That's not the one I'm thinking of, but maybe I could
Oh,
be missing it.
Hey.
No, the Brothers Grunt actually is kind of gross. It's kind of a
Oh.
gross show, and it's a lot like Ren and Stimpy. You know how Ren and Stimpy gets a little gross with some of like their visuals. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
hilarious show. Don't misunderstand me. Love Ren and Stimpy. I think it's 99% family friendly. Just every once in a while, you know, they'll show a booger like up close, and it'll be very
Yeah.
shiny and green and gooey.
Typically, it's not animated; it's just a still shot. And
Yeah,
it gets
right.
into excruciating detail. Hey,
Yeah.
Thrash, there's a spam alert. We've got a bot hitting us at 7:40 p.m. If you can go to that, or 9:40 p.m. your time, if you can go there and block that bot.
Let's
So
see.
9:40?
Linnea Tooley.
Amina
Gotcha.
Tooley.
9:40. Let me just. I am scrolling down. I am. Actually, give me. I just locked. Here we go. 9.
Hmm.
I'm a scrolling.
Right after Lee Mateus, and it just says vur.life. And if we don't
Oh,
do anything
yeah.
about it, we're going to get pinged a bunch of times. In
All
just a
right.
second.
Gotcha.
I
Oh,
got
here
it.
it is. And
I got it.
You got it. All
I-
right.
I blocked the user. Thank you. Good.
Awesome.
Good.
I
looking
would
out.
have blocked it. Oh, and speaking of Ren and Stimpy, by the way, a buddy of mine who's retiring and leaving the country as part of his retirement gave me a whole bunch of these Ren and Stimpy comics. I just did a
Didn't
whole
you see
post
that
on
in a
them.
video? I thought I saw those in a video.
Yeah, I just did a post about it recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. I thought you were going to say Ed, Ed, and Eddie. Does anybody remember Ed, Ed, and Eddie?
I remember it. I don't remember being gross, but I do
Yeah.
remember it.
It wasn't gross. It was just Red and Stimpy kind of humor around the same time.
And what about
Oh.
Cow and Chicken too? Oh,
Yeah.
Just gonna say hi to Lisa
Hey,
Fields.
nice,
Lisa Fields in the
Lisa.
house.
And she remembers making bacon pancakes. She sang it. She sings it with her daughter as well. Awesome.
awesome. That's really cool.
Gotcha.
That's really cool. Yeah, Cow and Chicken and the one with the dog and the cat.
Yeah, I was going to say dog
fused
and cat,
together.
but maybe it was called something else. But I remember that one too.
Yeah.
That cat dog, because they would remember it was one animal.
Yeah.
Cat on one side and dog.
Cat
on
dog.
the other.
And no one figured out how they exactly use the lavatory.
You didn't ask those questions, right? It was,
I
mean,
did.
we all thought about it, but no.
It was my first thought, actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. Well, what else
Oh,
we
let's see.
got here?
What else we got? We got a whole bunch of goodies here. Oh, Hungry Jerk says, "How many DVDs do you have?" 4.
That's to John H.
Yeah.
I know. Daryl Johnson says, "Samurai Jack, love Samurai Jack. Have you seen any of the new ones? There's like the whole new incarnation."
It's on Netflix, right? I haven't watched it.
I haven't seen any of the old ones.
Oh,
Oh, those are good.
Are they?
they're very good.
What about the
They're very
last
good.
Airbender? Were you guys into
Yes, my boys loved the Avatar
that? Yeah.
cartoon.
yeah,
and
the
then the
Avatar.
follow-up. There was a follow-up to Avatar. I'm trying to remember the name. The girl character. Excellent stuff. Really well done.
But what about the movie? Did you hate the movie? Because everybody hated the movie.
I didn't hate it, but I recognized that it was an inferior copy of the cartoon.
I see.
And we have Georgia
Oh,
Ayers in the
Georgia.
house. Hi, gentlemen.
Hello, Georgia. Glad you could be joining us.
And let's see what else.
Steve Tevis is with us, Life and Sad.
Oh
Animals.
yeah. Hi. Life
He's
and Sad
asking about
Animals.
South Park. You're gonna have to go
Oh.
and watch the replay, dude. We talked about South Park till we're blue in the face earlier.
Yeah, we had a kind of a bigger conversation about South Park. It might even been. I think the only one that's been bigger so far has been The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I think South Park was a big one. I'm trying to look at some of these other
Legend
these other
of
ones.
Korra. That's the name of the Avatar follow-up that is so well done. As a matter of fact, it's actually had a renaissance over the last few years. All of those shows have. My kids, who are now young men, 18 to 22, have gone back and are rewatching those shows. They love them.
Mm.
Oh, here's something. Johnny says the brothers Grunt were named for the Rat Packers, and they were monks looking for a lost brother.
Oh, okay. All right.
So,
all right. I might have missed it. I might have missed that. So, but yeah, you're probably right.
And
Well, I know
again, I could have sworn they also like how Beavis and Butthead would occasionally show current music videos in their cartoons. I think the Brothers Grunt did that as well. But again, we're going back 30 years, and my memory's not what it used to be. At least not from what I can recall.
right. Some of these ones that you watch at like 10:30, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and I say 10:30. Okay. Like if it was like 10:30 now, and you're tired, but back then it would have been like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and you only see it once, and you try to remember it like 30 years later. It's a little bit more difficult to remember.
Spike Spikerson said there was Roscoe's Modern Life. I believe he's talking about Rocco's Modern Life, but yes, there sure was.
Yep.
Never saw it. Never saw Rocco's
Really?
Modern Life. Yep.
Oh, Jill Carter of Mars is with us. Hello, Jill Carter. She says, "Hey,
Hi.
Dave and ENC. What am I, chopped
Jill.
liver?"
I guess.
Yeah.
Can't say
I
no.
shall take it first.
You are not chopped liver.
What's the problem with chopped liver? It's awesome. It's delightful.
Yeah, I guess
Oh.
so, huh? We should think of something else. Oh,
Yeah.
BN equals Boogie Nights.
Was Boogie Nights. Thank you. I was still racking my brains on it, but I get an idea stuck in my head. It's difficult for me to get it out. Sometimes it's difficult for me to get it in, but that's another story.
Right. Exactly.
Let's see. John H. says, Animaniacs did a Rain Man satire back in the 90s.
They did.
I remember
That
they did a
would
lot
have
of
been-
satires. I don't remember Rain Man,
don't
but I do
remember
remember they
that
did a lot of satires.
Right. That would have been a
Let's
little.
see. And I like the comic strip though. I'm not sure which.
Maybe
comic
talking
strip he
about
was-
Dilbert. Maybe. Dilbert?
No, must have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's see. Skipping down to some. Treythos Myers says, "Two stupid dogs."
I don't
Two
remember that
stupid
one.
dogs. I don't remember that one either. That'll be interesting. All right.
And Hungry Jerk says Sailor Moon in Japan showed nudity edited for American viewers. Well, you'd almost have to.
Yeah. Those ones did too.
Libatea says, did you guys see Crashbox? It was kind of a learning show for kids, but very over the top. Not familiar with that one.
Not familiar with that one either.
Interesting to know what network that was on, Lee, if you want to let us know.
Right on. And what do we got here?
Charles Bellinger says, John Kay, the creator of Ren and Stimpy, was fired for Nickelodeon at the height of the show's popularity due to creating a toxic workplace environment, which we won't discuss here. I think we all know what the toxicity involved.
What Ren and Stimpy was fired by Nickelodeon at the height of the show, popular due to creating a toxic workplace environment. I'm not following. So
to put it tastefully, he was grooming underage girls with his work computer.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
And things went downhill from there when Nickelodeon found
I thought
out
it
about
was something about the show or something like that.
Oh no, he was toxic. The show was just
gotcha.
gross.
I was like,
he was beyond gross. He was, but
a
don't
little
get me started.
cringy, right?
Yeah. I read about Brothers Grunt in What Were They Thinking, a great book by David Hofstede.
Interesting. All right, Crashbox was on HBO. Well, let me know. Let's well, we got one more here. We need to see what.
Yeah. Well,
At
and
least
before you
one.
even go there, if we can go back, we skipped over one dude's comment about Napoleon Dynamite, and I just got to say, that is still, we watched those. We saved them. We recorded them on a DVR. They were on Fox. They were created by Mike Judge. Speaking of,
they were.
Yes, they were 6 episodes of Napoleon Dynamite before it crashed and burned. I don't know why. They got all the original actors from the movie back to voice the characters. They are so much fun, and we watch them to this day. We just watched an episode the other day.
Oh, cool.
Good stuff.
I've only seen the movie. I mean, I was a big fan of the movie. Loved it.
Same animation style as King of the Hill.
Cool. Really cool. All right, let's
And
get a
also
couple
very
more-
similar.
Oh, go
It
ahead,
was
go ahead.
based
Sorry.
on a short little comic clip Napoleon Dynamite. It's on YouTube. It's this like little mini featurette, and it was so well received they turned it into a feature film. Georgia here says, seems like a lot of Japanese animation are for American audience.
I don't know if they're for it, but I mean, I think
They're
they certainly
easily adapted
crossover
to American audience.
Right, exactly.
There's certainly a big market for it. And John Collins says, hey, Dave, have you done the magnets research yet? And remember, an autographed photo of the Mega 5 would sell huge.
Well, let me throw some context on here for this comment. So John, in a prior live stream, asked if I sell some merchandise. I noticed you have a really nice looking shirt on there, Ian.
Oh yes,
sure. That shirt is available for purchase on the over on my channel on any of my videos of the Good Stuff shirt. But along with that, there's other merch items, right? And he was asking about potentially doing something like a magnet. And John, I did do the research. I went over to the vendor that YouTube allows us to use for the merch shelf there, and they don't have a magnet. They have other things, stickers and phone cases and stuff like that, but they don't have a magnet. So I shot them a message suggesting that they do a magnet because I think that'd be a great one. But we won't be having a magnet with the Good Stuff logo on it anytime soon. The Mega 5 suggestion was he actually had suggested that somehow, some way, we get a photo with you, me, Thrash, Pat, Steve. Yep.
You forgot your own brother.
My brother, yeah. And we get us all together and then autograph it and sell them. I think John might be overestimating exactly our commercial appeal at this point, but God bless him for thinking.
I'll tell you
Very
what.
flattering, but
I'll tell you what. Every time I wear this shirt out, I always get a look. I always get somebody who looks down at it, and I always want to say, have you seen the show? I don't want to, to start random conversations with strangers, but I'm always wondering if they're like looking like, hey, I think I remember that on YouTube or something.
No one
like that.
asked me about that one, but I have one that says Pure West, which has an Adam West quote on it, and another one that has a Barney Fife, a cartoon version of Barney Fife on it that says "Nip it in the bud." Those ones invariably, whenever I go out with those ones on, people ask me about them, and they just love it.
They'll get get conversation starters there.
Yeah,
I've wondered, have you gotten recognized yet, Dave?
No,
about
never.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Never. And that's the way I want it to be. I love, it's great to be able to go out and be anonymous, and quite frankly, I don't even know how I'd react if someone did recognize me.
Somebody come up and say, "Hey, can I take a selfie with you?"
That would be too odd.
That would be weird. Well, and you don't do like with mine, like I'm kind of the face of the show too. You just kind of come in and say, "Let me introduce myself." Then it's back to the stills and the videos and stuff like that, except for on your broadcast.
I do that rarely. I've wanted to every once in a while kind of come out from behind what we do most of the time, at least what I do, is faceless videos, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I want to come out from behind the curtain every now and again, but there is something really wonderful about staying behind the images and just narrating to them. I got to tell you, there's a certain sense of security that comes from that. I admire you brave folks that are out there always in front of the camera, because I'm not that brave.
I thought about doing an animated one too, like, because you can get this animated thing for like $30 or something like that, and it just will click and animate. And I actually thought about doing a theology one that's animated. I don't know if you guys ever seen like the Bible Project, but if you ever, oh man, they get like millions of views. So, I mean, it's great, and they do animated stuff. It's very interesting. But I thought about doing. Like a TV theology kind of a thing, where like, because like I'll often use like something from TV or something from a movie as kind of the baseline story then for my exposition, and for example, the episode where in Gilligan's Island, where they all found gold and they were going to get off the island, but they couldn't get off the island because they all decided to keep the gold. And for me, that sparked in my mind the idea of 1 John 2:14 or something like that, where it says, "Do not love the world or the things of the world." For the thing, if anybody loves the world, love of the Father's not in them. And I thought that kind of came to my mind, and I do that all the time in my sermons. Like I'll always think of like a movie or something from that, and then I'll talk about the passage. So I thought of maybe making like 5-minute videos like that, like something on Gilligan's Island, and then to a Bible verse or something.
I
like
think
that.
that's a great idea. There's someone that has a channel here where it's the gospel and Andy Griffith. They call it the Mayberry Sunday School or something like that. And
right,
I think it's a great idea. There's so many lessons that that could translate over to what you do.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a few more comments. I did.
Oh.
Should we cover a few while Ian's gone?
I hit Steve's comment and I booted Ian. I think he's coming back now. There he is.
There he is.
I'm like, what I do?
I took myself out of my own show. I was worried. I thought maybe it shut it down or something like that. I guess thank God it didn't.
We have
3XL. I think 3XL might be as large as they come, Steve.
It's a good question. I was hoping for a 4X myself, actually.
Yeah.
Let's
All
see
right.
what else we do. Oh, Darrell Johnson says, Dave, a.k.a. Lex Luthor.
I'm thinking Dr. Evil.
Yeah, Dr.
Or someone
Evil.
else said that I kind of look like Fester. Oh, but that's when I have the black hoodie on. That looks more like Uncle Fester from Addams Family. But yeah, I can see a little Lex Luthor. I mean, I keep the head pretty darn smooth.
John Collins says, Dave, I received 2 of my shows today, the longer text Batman shirt and the Charlie's Angels shirt.
So you got a couple of the shirts. Well, thanks for picking them up, John. I appreciate, as always, the support.
Thrash is hosting now. Yes, my master plan.
I did get this figured out. As a matter of fact, here, I'll show you. I got my slides here. I'm going to show you a picture.
Nice.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Love it.
That was at one of the secretaries had that at the cancer center, and behind on her desk. And I said, I have got to have a picture of that. So yeah, we got it.
Name the movie.
Say anything.
Yeah. I guess it wasn't very hard.
No, one of the best movies ever.
Yeah.
All righty.
What's he playing on the boombox?
In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel.
Nicely done.
Off the So album. Next
question. Oh, wow. Even know the album. Wow.
On my feet today, aren't
I? I have a deal with everybody at work. I'll put my dime up against their quarter. They have to, whatever's playing on the radio, if I know the band, they got to put down a quarter. I mean, I'll put down a quarter if they put down a dime, so basically, but I tell them, I said, I get to win a dime, but every fact I know about the band, you got to pay me an additional dime. So I could lose a quarter, but if I get that dime, so. Well, what's going on your guys' channel? Oh, we got some more.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Lisa Field says, well, I'm exhausted. Good night, everyone. Night, Dave, Ian, and Thrash Pondo.
Good night,
Lisa.
Good night. And he says, mention your church channel. I'll put in a link after the show, okay? In the description box, so that I don't have to mention it, and people go and look it up. I'll put in a link for it. What's going on your channel these days, Dave?
You know what? I'm doing a little bit of experimentation, folks. Some people have told me they love it. Other folks haven't loved it as much, but I have been doing something called Short Saturday. On Saturdays, I've been releasing a handful of YouTube shorts. Those are videos that are formatted in portrait format instead of landscape, and they're for you to hold with your phone, and kind of like TikTok, you just scroll through them. But I've released a bunch of those, probably 7 or 8 videos in the last couple of weeks using that format, and have had relatively decent success with that. My latest video on the channel is Eddie Murphy, the classic TV show that saved Eddie Murphy's life. And if not
Yep.
saved his life, well, it had a huge impact on him because it was a refuge, a safe place, a sanctuary for him as a young man.
For
It's
sure.
another story that I got from a book that was sent to me by John Collins, who's in the chat this evening, that I have just been enjoying the heck out of. A really wonderful book called The Boys, written by Ron and Clint Howard. And that should give you a hint as to what that show might have been. And I know I'm not talking about the Andy Griffith Show. I'm not, by the way, folks, the folks that have been anticipating a Thursday night live stream, it's unlikely that that will happen this week. But the good news is hey, I hung out with my buddies Ian and Thrash tonight, and I'll be hanging out with Pat and BK on the air, Barry King, noted radio personality and well-known podcaster, on Wednesday night. At the time that my live stream used to air on Wednesdays. So hopefully you'll head over to Pat's channel on Wednesday night and catch that live stream. That should be a really fun one. We're going to talk about Trek, all kinds of Trek.
I'm all over it.
Head on over. Head on over.
times.
I
haven't
will
got-
go. I will be there.
I haven't got the invite yet, so I don't know if he's going to have me on the show. But
I think Pat's a little leery about juggling too many people at one time.
yeah,
But I know he has, as we've talked about his live stream plans and ambitions, I know that he has plans to involve both of you in some capacity in the future.
yeah. Well, I am definitely looking forward to jumping on. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
Pat,
until
if you
then-
listen to this, I'm interested in jumping in over there, and I'm always interested in showing up at Dave's show too. You know, anytime, Dave. I can always say something.
Well, that's the thing I love about both you guys is you're truly, when I need you, you're always there, and I appreciate that.
I can even serve as a bad example. That's how everybody can do something, even if you serve as a bad example. Thrash, what do you got going on over at your channel?
I've still been doing more of my posts on any subject. For all my friends of channel out there, you give me a topic and I'll do a show on it. Still compiling information for my ongoing saga to find the worst jokes money can buy. And there'll still be a certain amount of post on vintage science fiction and horror, because that's really how I got the whole thing started. And I could talk about sci-fi horror all day. Sci-fi preferred.
Loved
And
your Mad Magazine video. The only complaint I have, Mr. Pons, if that is your name, is that you didn't open up any of the magazines for me to look at. I needed that video to be like 5 times longer, and I needed an escort through at least a couple. I remember a few of those covers of Mad Magazine, but some of them, like the Tootsie one, I've never seen before.
Well, you know what? That's why I did that one. It was really just a showcase. You ask and I shall provide. So another friend of channel requests, I will do a post on that, both Tootsie and Sweet.
Thank you so much.
Right
Got
on.
your back, Dave.
Well, everyone, go ahead and please hit the like button on this and share it on your favorite social media. Tomorrow, I actually released it for my Patreons today for the Honeycomb Hideout, and that is 5 things you didn't know about Who's the Boss. It's a little rough, I have to admit, because it's been a while since I've done any videos. So, but I'm going to release it. You know, I mean, it kind of is what it is. But I can tell I was a little out of sorts. It took me a long time to film it and get it together, but should be good quality, and I think everyone should really enjoy it. And I'm getting back to things, kind of going back to at least hopefully normal. I'll have the 5 to 10 minute video on Mondays, plus a podcast, plus the plus the Monday night live stream. So look forward to all of that. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you, Dave, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you, Thrash, for emceeing the event as well,
My pleasure as always.
being the co-host here. And thank you, everybody out there who stayed and watched this whole thing, and anybody who even popped in. Really appreciate that. However long you could stay, it really means a lot to me and everyone here. All right, guys, we will talk to you again real soon.